Welcome, dearly beloved anointed ones. The greatest mysteries are not written in books. They walk among us, breathing, moving, and unsettling everything they touch. Chosen ones, let's get one thing clear. You are not just being watched, you are being studied. Someone is trying to figure you out like a puzzle that refuses to solve itself. And here's the catch. The harder they stare, the blurrier you become. It's almost unfair, like trying to read invisible ink with sunglasses on. Think about this. According to psychological studies, the human brain is hardwired to fear what it cannot predict. That's why horror movies use shadows more than monsters. It's the unknown that drives people insane. And you, chosen one, are that unknown in real life. You're walking evidence that not everything in this world can be measured, tamed, or explained. That's why they're investigating you. Not because you're loud, not because you're flashy, but because you're mysterious. Your life doesn't add up on their calculator. Your victories don't match their equations. Your survival doesn't fit their statistics. You are the exception in a world that worships rules. So buckle up, because tonight we're going deep into why your existence has become their unsolvable case file, and why the very act of investigating you only exposes them, not you. And yes, let's sprinkle in a little humor. They're basically trying to Google a password that only God himself set. Spoiler alert, it won't work. Number one, they're not investigating you. They're investigating a pattern they can't name. They're not really investigating you as a person. They're chasing a puzzle they can't solve. To them, you're like a living glitch in a program they thought they understood. Your choices, timing, resilience, and the way you seem to recover from setbacks don't line up with what they were taught about how life works. People are supposed to behave predictably. They're supposed to break under pressure, follow the crowd, and respond to manipulation. Yet every time you're placed in that mold, you slip out of it without effort. This is why their eyes are on you. They're not just curious. They're unsettled, because you're not only outside their rules, you're exposing the limits of those rules just by existing. They're looking for a formula. They're hoping there's some hidden trick, a step-by-step process, a mentor, or a secret connection that explains how you've become who you are. But the truth they can't accept is that you're not a product of a formula. You're a product of alignment, inner work, and a kind of unseen favor they don't have language for. They keep pulling at threads, but nothing unravels. They dig into your past, hoping to find dirt or a defining moment of luck, but all they find are battles you survived and lessons you integrated. What should have broken you became your refinement, and that's exactly what confuses them. This isn't just curiosity, it's a subtle form of panic. The world is built on the assumption that everything can be explained, replicated, and controlled. You're living proof that this assumption is false. You're not a person they're trying to get to know. You're a crack in their worldview they're trying to patch. They'll run tests, compare notes, and whisper theories, but none of it will bring them closer. Because what they're really investigating isn't you. It's their own inability to grasp the unseen. And that's why your mystery keeps growing instead of shrinking. The harder they look, the more they see that there's nothing to expose, only something to respect. You're not their research subject. You're their wake-up call. Number two, your life doesn't follow the laws of cause and effect. They were taught. They've been taught that life works like a vending machine. You put in effort, money, influence, or manipulation, and you get a predictable outcome. Success is supposed to follow certain formulas. Pain is supposed to crush. Loss is supposed to break. But you don't fit into that cause and effect structure. You keep defying their math. You show up with less visible resources, but end up accomplishing more. You endure storms that would have shattered most people and come out clearer, stronger, even radiant. To them, this isn't just unusual. It's a direct challenge to everything they've built their beliefs on. They look at your wins and can't trace them back to the usual inputs. No powerful backers, no obvious shortcuts, no compromises they can point to. You move in ways that don't leave fingerprints, yet the results you produce leave a mark everywhere. This disorients them because they live in a world where power, money, and manipulation are the main currencies. You've proven there's another currency at work, something unseen, something rooted in alignment, conviction, and grace. And because they don't understand it, they're trying to study you like a science experiment. Your setbacks don't play out like normal setbacks either. They expect failure to silence you, but your failures have a strange way of amplifying you. They expect loss to dim you, but your losses end up positioning you better. In their worldview, outcomes are transactional and predictable, but your life operates more like a field of influence, quiet, unseen, but undeniable. This is what unnerves them. They can't replicate what they can't name. They're not just curious about how you win, they're threatened by how you win, because if your way of moving through the world is real, it means their whole system of manipulation, shortcuts, and politics is weaker than they thought. It means there's a force at play that outruns strategy and outlasts schemes, and deep down, that terrifies them. They're investigating because you're not just breaking their rules, you're exposing their rules as illusions. You've become living proof that life is not a closed system of cause and effect, but something far larger, something they can't control. And that makes you not just unusual, but revolutionary. And number 3, they sense a hidden source power behind you they can't access. What unsettles them most isn't your intelligence, your skills, or your discipline. It's the sense that something else stands behind you. They can explain hard work. They can explain talent. They can explain strategy. But they can't explain why doors open for you that stay locked for others, why storms seem to break before they reach you, or why your influence stretches far beyond what your visible platform should allow. They sense an invisible presence in your life, a backing that doesn't come from money, family, or connections. It's like you're plugged into a source they don't have access to, and that makes them restless. They're not just trying to figure you out, they're trying to reverse engineer the power behind you. They look for your rituals, your mentors, your hidden contacts, hoping they'll discover the how behind your glow. But the truth they refuse to acknowledge is that your power doesn't come from anything external. It isn't a trick they can copy, a network they can infiltrate, or a formula they can buy. It's a frequency they cannot pirate, an alignment they cannot fake. You've become proof that real authority comes from within, from a connection so deep that it can't be stolen or replicated. This terrifies them because their entire approach to life is transactional. They believe everything can be purchased, manipulated, or borrowed. But you've introduced a wild variable: authenticity, purpose, and unseen favor. They sense it every time you walk into a room and shift the atmosphere without trying. They see it when you overcome setbacks with a calm that doesn't make sense. They know it's there, but they don't know what to call it, so they call it luck or connections or even suspicion, because it's easier to label what they don't understand than to face the truth that their system has limits. They're investigating you because they're trying to break into a vault that isn't made of metal but of spirit. They think if they study you long enough, they'll find the key, but what they don't realize is that there is no key to steal. The door only opens from within. And the more they pry, the more they're forced to confront the reality that what surrounds you isn't a shield they can breach. It's a realm they can't even enter. Number 4, they're tracking you because your impact doesn't match your platform. Your presence has begun to break their equations. In their world, influence is supposed to be measurable: follower counts, media reach, money, networks. They've built charts, graphs, and algorithms to predict who will matter and who won't. But you don't register the way they expect. You don't have the megaphone they're used to, yet your words echo. You don't have the stage they respect, yet your moves send ripples through spaces you've never even entered. That contradiction unsettles them more than anything you say. They're used to power looking like noise, loud campaigns, viral trends, public displays. But your power moves differently. It's subtle but undeniable, quiet but penetrating. You can whisper and it lands like a thunderclap. You can make a single decision in private, and entire dynamics shift in public. This is what draws their eyes, not your publicity, but your effect. They're studying you because they can't figure out how such a small, visible platform produces such a large, invisible footprint. They suspect manipulation or some hidden network, but what they're running into is resonance. Resonance can't be manufactured or bought. It's the natural authority of a soul aligned with truth, the way a single note can shatter glass while a louder noise can't. Your presence vibrates at a frequency that amplifies beyond your size, and they have no metric for it. This is why they're tracking you. They're not just curious about you. They're trying to understand a force they've never seen up close. Their systems are built to monitor noise, not depth. Their tools can measure clicks and views, but they can't measure the weight of a presence. And so they're baffled, circling you, hoping to map the invisible influence you carry. But the harder they look, the clearer it becomes that what moves through you isn't branding or strategy. It's something real, something rooted, something they can't counterfeit. Number 5, you are a living disruption to hidden systems. You don't have to shout, protest, or even rebel loudly to be a disruption. Your very presence is already a contradiction to how the hidden systems of this world are designed to work. Those systems, whether social, psychological, or spiritual, are built on the assumption that people will remain predictable, compliant, and asleep. They run on fear, on routine, on unexamined habits. They survive because most people follow the script without questioning it. But you aren't following the script. You're not afraid to see, to think, to act differently. And that alone destabilizes the machinery. The reason they're watching you isn't because you broke a law or bent a regulation. It's because you revealed something far more dangerous to them. Proof that the entire system is optional. You didn't escape by playing their game better. You escaped by realizing you didn't have to play at all. That makes you a living glitch, a walking reminder that their power only works on those who believe in it. Your life sends a quiet but deafening message. The chains are real only if you accept them. This makes them nervous because every system needs examples to keep the rest in line. When someone refuses to be molded, it exposes how weak the mold really is. Your freedom is a mirror to others, showing them possibilities they were taught didn't exist. People begin to wake up, and when enough people wake up, systems collapse, not through violence, but through irrelevance. You're not waging war on their structures. You're making them obsolete just by living differently. That's why you're under scrutiny, not because you're loud, but because you're effective without trying to be. You disrupt without needing to attack. You prove the rules can be broken without breaking anything at all. And that makes you far more unsettling than any overt rebellion. You're not just outside their system. You're evidence that their system is smaller, weaker, and more fragile than they've ever admitted. Your existence forces them to reckon with a reality they've spent years denying. Their control only works on the compliant, and you are no longer one of them. Number 6, you're the one variable they can't manipulate. They're used to having leverage on people. Everyone has a price, a weakness, a hidden desire they can dangle like bait. Most people will trade their integrity for comfort, their values for status, or their silence for safety. That's how these systems maintain control, by finding the point of compromise and pressing it until the person folds. But you're different. They've tried to identify your pressure points: money, recognition, relationships, fear, shame, and none of it sticks. Not because you're flawless, but because your foundation isn't built on what they can give or take. Your loyalty is to something they can't access. It's deeper than approval, bigger than fear, and stronger than the illusions they offer. This makes you feel unpredictable to them. You're not motivated by the same incentives as everyone else, which means you're not controllable by the same tactics. They can't buy your silence, seduce your ambition, or weaponize your past. When they push, nothing moves. When they offer, nothing tempts. That kind of integrity is rare, and it terrifies them because it exposes the fragility of their influence. They're not just frustrated, they're threatened. Systems of manipulation survive on the assumption that no one is immune. The moment someone stands untouched, the entire strategy starts to crumble. If you can't be bribed or broken, you become a living proof that their control isn't absolute. And worse, others can see it. You don't even have to preach. Your resistance sends a message that freedom is possible. That makes you far more disruptive than any open rebellion because you show that power without fear is real. It's not your perfection that protects you, it's your alignment. You're anchored in something beyond reach, truth, purpose, a higher calling. These things can't be bought or threatened. This is why you're not just mysterious to them, you're dangerous. Their entire framework depends on predictability, and you've become the one variable they can't predict or manipulate. They can study you, shadow you, even try to smear you. But the one thing they can't do is bend you. And that's the real reason they're watching so closely, because your existence proves their power has limits, and they can't stand to see it. Number 7. They're hoping you'll make a mistake that explains you. They're not observing you like an admirer would. They're scrutinizing you like a detective who can't crack a case. Their fascination is mixed with frustration. They've built an image of you in their minds that feels too extraordinary, too untouchable, and it unsettles them. They can't accept that someone can live with such consistency, integrity, or depth without it being an act. So they wait, watching for the stumble, the contradiction, the crack in the mask. In their minds, if they can catch one moment of hypocrisy, one lapse in judgment, one sign that you're just like everyone else, they can finally breathe again. This isn't simple curiosity, it's a form of desperation. People who rely on illusions of control can't stand mysteries that refuse to be solved. You are their living mystery. You've endured things that should have left you bitter but didn't. You've risen in ways that don't follow their formulas. They're convinced there must be a catch. They don't want to understand you. They want to reduce you to something manageable, explainable, and unthreatening. That's why they search for flaws with such intensity. But your authenticity keeps dissolving their efforts. You're not operating from a script, so there's nothing for them to expose. Your transparency is your armor, because you're not pretending to be perfect. You can't be accused of faking perfection. Your humanity is already on display, but it's rooted in truth, so it can't be weaponized. This is what makes you uncontainable. They're used to tearing down personas, but you're not a persona. You're a person anchored in a reality they can't access. The longer they watch, the more their narrative starts to fall apart. Instead of discovering a flaw big enough to explain you, they're forced to confront their own motives, the envy, the skepticism, the hunger for control that drives them. They wanted you to slip so they could justify their doubts, but every day you live in authenticity, you turn their searchlight back on themselves. And that's what they fear most. Not that you'll make a mistake, but that you won't. And they'll have to face the uncomfortable truth that what you embody is real. Number 8, you don't fit the psychological profiles they've built. They've spent years perfecting their psychological profiles. They know how to read leaders, rebels, influencers, and even those who present as spiritually chosen. They have templates for every type of person, motivations, weaknesses, triggers, ambitions. These profiles give them a sense of control. If they can predict someone, they can manipulate them. But you don't fit any of their boxes. You show traits from several archetypes but never fully embody one. You're strong but not power-hungry, humble but not submissive, bold but not reckless. Every time they think they've mapped your pattern, you shift again, not as a tactic but because you're not playing by patterns at all. What confounds them most is that your motives aren't rooted in self-serving interests. Most people, even the righteous, have an angle: money, validation, influence, or revenge. That makes them easy to predict, but your choices come from a place beyond the visible. Alignment, calling, integrity. You make decisions that don't make sense from a worldly perspective, but unfold perfectly in the long run. That's not randomness, that's operating from a higher dimension of awareness. They can't compute it because it's not transactional. They're used to people who pretend to be altruistic while secretly protecting their egos. With you, they keep waiting to find the mask, but there isn't one. This terrifies them because if authenticity at that level exists, it makes their entire profiling system obsolete. Their frameworks assume that everyone is ultimately driven by self-interest. You're living evidence that this isn't always true. That breaks their predictive models and exposes the fragility of their power. This unpredictability isn't chaos, it's freedom. Because you're not driven by greed, fear, or vanity, you're not bound to the same scripts they use to control others. Your motives move like a higher current, and no algorithm can chart a current it doesn't understand. This is why they watch you with such intensity. You're not just unclassifiable, you're ungovernable by their methods. You've become proof that real leadership, real influence, and real chosenness can't be quantified or boxed. And in a world built on categories and control, that makes you the one presence they can't anticipate, predict, or neutralize. Number 9, your past should have destroyed you, but it became your shield. They've gone through your past like scavengers, certain they'd find something they could use to explain or discredit you. They expected to uncover a broken person, someone damaged, bitter, and fragile. In their minds, trauma is supposed to leave people weak and dependent, easy to manipulate or silence. But what they've discovered about you is the opposite of what they predicted. The pain you endured didn't leave you hollow. It left you forged. Every loss, betrayal, and setback that should have shattered you became a training ground for resilience. Instead of scars that signal vulnerability, you now carry a kind of quiet armor that nothing can pierce. They don't understand how your past became your strength because their systems rely on trauma as leverage. Wounds are easy to exploit and broken people are easy to steer. They expected to see emotional cracks they could widen. Instead, they're staring at someone whose cracks have been sealed with wisdom, boundaries, and discernment. Every experience that was meant to break you taught you how to read motives, spot traps, and move with precision. This is why their manipulation fails. They're playing games you've already outgrown. Your past didn't just teach you survival, it rewired your instincts. You no longer react like someone naive to pain. You recognize patterns faster, sense danger earlier, and recover quicker. This has made you immune to tactics that would derail someone else. What they thought would be your liability has become your code of immunity. You don't carry trauma like an open wound, you carry it like a shield made of insight. And that shield is invisible but undeniable. It's why you don't crumble under pressure the way they expect. It's why you move with a confidence they can't explain. You're not hardened, you're refined. That difference matters. Hardness closes the heart. Refinement sharpens it. And it's the sharpening that scares them, because a refined soul can't be easily fooled, bought, or broken. The very history they thought would ruin you is now the reason they can't reach you. Your past, instead of being your downfall, has become your quiet, unshakable defense. And they're left staring at the proof that what was meant to destroy you became the making of you. Number 10, silence isn't strategy, it's encryption. They've mistaken your silence for caution, as if you're carefully plotting your next move. They think your quietness is a tactic, some calculated pause before striking. But what they don't realize is that your silence isn't a pause at all. It's a language they don't understand. You're not withholding out of fear or shyness. You're moving at a level they can't intercept, a frequency their tools can't tune into. Your restraint isn't empty space, it's encrypted space. Every word you choose not to speak is like a firewall. It blocks intrusion, protects your energy, and prevents them from reading your intentions. They're used to people giving themselves away through oversharing, nervous chatter, or predictable reactions. But with you, the usual methods don't work. They can't bait you into revealing your plans. They can't use your words to trap you. And because they can't decode what you're not saying, your silence becomes your strongest defense. Even your actions follow this pattern. Every move you don't make is a layer of invisibility. You're not playing small, you're moving differently. You're letting timing, intuition, and discernment guide you instead of ego or impulse. This makes it impossible for them to predict your steps or anticipate your next shift. They're left tracking shadows, trying to map a pattern that doesn't exist. This isn't about being secretive for the sake of mystery, it's about alignment. You're no longer broadcasting your process to be validated or approved. You've learned that exposure is vulnerability when it's premature. So you let your growth and decisions unfold in quiet spaces where interference can't reach. And by the time the result is visible, it's already too solid to be sabotaged. Your silence isn't emptiness, it's power condensed. It's movement in its purest form, quiet, deliberate, and unstoppable. While they're trying to eavesdrop on noise, you're transmitting on a wavelength that doesn't translate to their world. That's why your presence feels so impenetrable. They're not just shut out of your plans, they're shut out of your frequency. And that's not a strategy you crafted, it's who you've become. Number 11, they're confused because you move like someone who knows the end of the story. They're used to people cracking under uncertainty. Most individuals reveal their fears when things become unstable. Voices rise, tempers flare, and decisions become impulsive. Chaos exposes desperation. But you don't move like that. You carry a steadiness that feels almost alien to them. Even when everything around you shifts, you remain composed, deliberate, and unshaken. It's not that you're ignoring reality, it's that you're rooted in something deeper than the moment. That calm presence confuses them because it doesn't fit the normal script of fear and reaction. Your composure makes it look as if you already know how things will turn out, as though you've seen the ending before anyone else. You don't scramble for control, you don't over-explain, and you don't engage in battles that drain your energy. This unsettles them because panic is predictable and predictability is controllable. But a person who moves with calm certainty is impossible to manipulate. They don't know where to push because nothing about you reacts the way they expect. What terrifies them most isn't your strength, but your serenity. Strength they can fight, anger they can provoke, fear they can exploit, but calmness is untouchable. It signals to them that your power isn't rooted in circumstances or appearances, but in something unshakable inside you. Every step you take seems to come from a quiet knowing, a conviction that no storm lasts forever and no opposition is final. That level of inner security disarms their tactics before they even deploy them. They try to read your moves, but your stillness gives them nothing to work with. It makes their games look frantic and obvious in comparison. The truth is, you're not calm because you're naive or indifferent. You're calm because you're aligned. You're not playing to win the moment. You're living from a bigger perspective. One that sees beyond the noise of the present. That's what rattles them. They're dealing with someone who doesn't flinch, doesn't grasp, and doesn't crumble. And in a world built on reaction, a person who moves like they already know the ending is more threatening than any weapon they could hold. Number 12. Your presence forces their shadows into the open. Your presence has a way of pulling the truth to the surface without you even trying. People who live in deception, manipulation, or compromise can usually hide it from the world. They're skilled at wearing masks, at saying the right things, at maintaining appearances. But when you're around, something shifts. Their masks start to slip. Their tone changes. Their hidden motives become visible. It's not because you're confronting them directly, it's because your authenticity acts like a light that reveals whatever's in the room. That light doesn't judge, it simply exposes. And for those who are invested in darkness, exposure feels like an attack. This is why some people seem uneasy in your presence. They're not uncomfortable because of anything you've done to them. They're uncomfortable because of what you bring out of them. Being near you forces them to face parts of themselves they've successfully hidden from others, and even from themselves. The lies, the compromises, the secret agendas they've justified start to feel heavier under the weight of your integrity. You don't accuse them, you simply are. And your being acts like a mirror they can't avoid. They resent that mirror because it makes their own shadows undeniable. With others, they can play roles, control narratives, and hide behind performance. With you, the performance feels hollow. Their smiles look thinner, their words sound less convincing, and their intentions feel exposed. It's as though your energy strips away the camouflage they've built. This is both magnetic and threatening. Some are drawn to it because it calls them higher. Others recoil from it because it reveals what they're not ready to change. You've become a kind of living X-ray for intentions, and it's not something you consciously do, it's who you've become. Your alignment with truth naturally contrasts with anything false. That contrast makes people either transform or retreat. And because exposure feels like danger to those invested in deception, they project their discomfort onto you, labeling you as intimidating or mysterious to justify their own reaction. But deep down, they know it isn't you attacking them. It's their own shadows trembling under a light they can't dim. Number 13, they're learning too late that mystery is your natural state, not a persona. They assumed your mystery was a performance, something you crafted to gain attention or control how people see you. In their world, mystery is a tactic, something taught in books, curated on social media, or worn like an accessory to manipulate perception. So when they encountered you, they applied the same logic. This must be a strategy. They thought if they watched long enough, asked the right questions, or probed deeply enough, they'd eventually find the real you hiding beneath the mystique. But they keep discovering there is no mask to pull off because the mystery isn't a costume, it's your nature. Your complexity isn't a smokescreen, it's your blueprint. You didn't study how to be enigmatic. You emerged that way. Your thoughts, your instincts, your experiences, and your inner world don't fit into the neat compartments they're used to sorting people into. That's why their usual methods, profiling, analyzing, labeling, keep failing. They're trying to dissect something that wasn't built to be disassembled. Each layer they think they've peeled back only reveals another and another and another. It isn't infinite layers of deception, it's infinite layers of authenticity. What unsettles them most is that they can't trace your motives back to ego or self-interest. When people play mysterious as a tactic, it's always for gain, attention, power, influence. But you aren't withholding for manipulation, you are simply vast. You exist across dimensions, spiritual, emotional, intellectual, that they can't map with their limited tools. Their frameworks were designed for linear beings, but you are anything but linear. You're encoded in a way that can't be decoded because you were never a puzzle to be solved. You're an entire library, always expanding, always rewriting itself. This is why their curiosity turns into frustration. They wanted to figure you out, to reduce you to a file they could understand. But each attempt only exposes their own limitations. They thought mystery was an act they could outlast. Now they're realizing it's your permanent state, an essence, not an effort. They're discovering too late that you can't peel infinity. You can only stand before it, awed or unsettled, but never in control of it. And that realization, more than anything you've said or done, is what keeps you beyond their grasp. Number 14. Their investigation will end in self-revelation, not your exposure. They began their investigation believing they would uncover you. They expected to find inconsistencies, hidden agendas, or vulnerabilities that would explain how you operate. In their minds, putting you under a microscope would strip away the mystery and give them control. But what they didn't anticipate was how truth works. The closer you get to a true source of light, the more it reflects, not outward but inward. Instead of your flaws, they're seeing their own. Instead of unmasking you, they're unmasking themselves. Every step of their search reveals their real motives. They call it curiosity, but beneath it sits envy. They call it research, but beneath it is hunger for power, for validation, for proof that no one can be different from them. By trying to pick you apart, they expose the very fragility they were hoping to hide. Each question they ask about you mirrors a question they've been avoiding about themselves. Each suspicion they throw at you reveals a shadow they haven't faced in their own life. The investigation becomes a confession, even if they don't realize it. What's striking is how they misread your resilience. They thought looking deeply at you would break you down, but instead it breaks down the illusions they've built. They can't find any cracks to exploit because your integrity doesn't have a front and a back. It's seamless. Their tools, gossip, surveillance, manipulation, only bounce back and show them how transparent they have become. They're not learning who you are, they're learning what's inside them when they can't control a narrative. This is the irony. The investigation they thought would reveal your weakness ends up revealing their own hunger and fragility. In trying to expose you, they're exposing their desperation to believe everyone is corruptible. In trying to shrink you, they're watching their own smallness reflected back. They started with a searchlight pointed at you, but the beam is bending. It's no longer about you. It's about the parts of themselves they've been afraid to confront. And when they finally see it, they'll realize the investigation was never your trial. It was their mirror. The truth is this: being a chosen one isn't about being understood, measured, or contained. Every layer of your existence defies the rules they rely on. Every choice you make exposes systems they've depended on, and every step you take reveals truths they've worked to hide from themselves. They are watching, probing, and calculating, convinced they can uncover you, but in reality it's their own reflection they're seeing. Your life doesn't operate by their scripts or expectations. It moves on a frequency they cannot tune into, a rhythm they cannot anticipate, and a logic they cannot crack. Every attempt to define you, predict you, or break you only confirms what you already embody: resilience, authenticity, and alignment with forces far beyond ordinary understanding. Your silence protects, your past strengthens, your calm unsettles, and your very presence illuminates truths they've spent a lifetime avoiding. They hoped for mistakes, contradictions, or weaknesses that could explain you. But the more they search, the more they confront their own envy, fragility, and limitations. You are not an open book. You are a living testament that some things cannot be copied, manipulated, or diminished. The lesson is clear. Their investigation is not about exposure, it is about revelation. What they discover will never weaken you. It will only reveal the truths they've been unwilling to face within themselves. You move, you endure, you rise in ways that cannot be anticipated, and that is what makes you untouchable. You are not their subject, you are the standard. You are the measure by which everything else is exposed, tested, and found wanting. So stand firm in your mystery, unwavering in your integrity, and confident in the invisible forces that guide you. Let them watch, let them calculate, let them theorize. It changes nothing about your essence. Their gaze cannot reach what is aligned, anchored, and encoded in purpose. You are the living disruption, the uncrackable code, and the quiet force they can never control. And in the end, it is not you who will be defined, it is them who will be revealed. Your existence is the truth they will never contain, the lesson they will never fully learn, and the power they will never touch. You are unexplainable, unstoppable, and undeniably chosen. If this message spoke to you, if it opened your eyes, or if it helped you see your own power more clearly, don't just leave it here. Be part of this movement. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next upload. Click like if this resonated with your spirit, and drop a comment below to share your thoughts or your own story. Your words could be the spark someone else needs today. And if you know someone who's walking through a season of being misunderstood, watched, or underestimated, share this video with them right now. You never know whose life you might shift with one simple click. This channel is more than content. It's a community of people who see, feel, and know at a deeper level. When you subscribe, like, comment, and share, you're helping to build a space where truth can't be silenced and real voices can rise. Let's grow together. Let's keep the light moving forward. Tap that button. Join us. Stay aligned. God bless you.